Thank you for having me. I wanted to just share briefly kind of what economic development is from my perspective, what my goals are, and ways interested people can get involved. So what is economic development? I think of it as a cycle. So a great place to live is a great place to invest in and develop. And a great place to invest in and develop is a great place to live. So if you think about it, I have this image up here that you guys can look at later, but basically think of three circles. One is the community, one represents successful businesses, and one represents economic developers. So what makes up your community? That's your infrastructure, your public safety, your parks, your housing funds, your public employees, you know, everything around that, and all that can add up to what the quality of life is. So then if you think about that community, how does that community run, or what's the fuel for that? And so that comes from the taxes paid by, you know, homeowners, by businesses, and by consumers. So those taxes are kind of, then it connects us to the next circle. So those successful businesses. So people are getting their products and services there, people are working there, people who work in town are going to those businesses, right? So then you have this interconnected social fabric. So then how did those businesses get there? So that's where the economic developers come in. So that's made up of investors and entrepreneurs who see opportunities for different products and services and see that the community has the type of quality of life and social fabric to invest, and then all of that just feeds right back in. So then more investment, more businesses, more quality of life for the residents. So having said that, if you think about economic development, there are some different components of it from the perspective of the person who's in charge of moving it forward. So that would be infrastructure, housing, zoning, the workforce, and transportation. So at any given time, your focus might shift, but you're really trying to bring it all into balance to encourage prosperity. So, and again, I just want to emphasize how interrelated everything is. So workers need housing, workers need transportation options that aren't exceedingly expensive or onerous. People need public safety and infrastructure that prioritizes health and safety. And then you have the future workforce, and they need education. And then overall, the growth of a town can really be guided by the zoning. You can use that to make things be very cohesive, to encourage certain types of businesses, to help plan communities, and so on and so forth. So that kind of brings it all to me. So when I came into the role, as I looked at the town and I looked at, you know, the Acton 2020 plan and the select board goals, I realized that I have three major objectives. So that's supporting businesses, supporting the workforce, and supporting the overall quality of life. So what do those things mean? So if I'm supporting businesses, I'm an advocate for them in town hall. So whether that means giving information, or it could mean providing technical support. Maybe there's a program and they want to apply to it, but they're overwhelmed by the paperwork. You can come to me, right? It also means showing up at events, you know, whether it's a ribbon cutting or something else special, to just say, you know, I'm here to support you. This is exciting. I want to share about it. And then finally, it's listening. I think communication is so important. It's one of my core values, especially when you think of, say, things like COVID or anything. There's a continual change of what's needed and what businesses are interested in. And so I'm only going to be able to meet those changing needs and interests if I'm listening and hearing them and building relationships over time. So supporting the workforce, that looks like supporting any initiative that helps those who want to work stay employed. So again, transportation, what are our public transit options? Or childcare, is there sufficient and affordable childcare available in town? anything else that helps maintain the economic status of the residents. One example of this is that I'm an organizer of the quarterly Middlesex Manufacturing Summit. And so that meeting was just held last week, but we brought together manufacturing employers, educational institutions, so like vocational, whether it's the vocational high schools or some of the adult vocational educational institutions, and job seeker agencies, to talk about the most pressing issues. So everyone said, okay, our biggest issue is the labor shortage. So then we moderated that discussion to kind of dig deeper and to identify what are the 4 biggest things within that, and then talk through some solutions, encouraging collaboration, encouraging people to say, okay, well, I agree, I have those same 2 issues, but we solved this, and this is how, so that they can hear what others are doing to deal with the issue. So that's been exciting for me to be involved in organizing, because manufacturers are a huge employer for our town. And then supporting quality of life. So that's supporting projects like Kelly's Corner. So you guys are all familiar with the Kelly's Corner construction. It's finally slated to start this fall. And so, it's going to be a Massachusetts Department of Transportation project. But from my perspective, my goal is to help businesses in that area mitigate the disruption. So I've been meeting individually with business owners to collect their concerns so that I'm able to share those with the Department of Transportation. Also just doing something as simple as collecting the key contact person name and contact info, so that when the construction starts, if there's an emergency, the construction manager will know who to call and when. And the construction is slated to last 3 years, so that's why it's really important to me to meet and build relationships with these business owners, because we want them to stay, we want them to thrive. And these pictures here are the plans for how it's going to look when it's all said and done. So we know it's going to be beautiful. At the same time, we have to make sure that we help the businesses make it through those 3 years. So I don't want to go on and on and on and bore you guys with everything, but...
Well, just a quick thing on that project, for those who may be watching this later on and aren't familiar with it at all. In a nutshell, what is the project?
So Kelly's Corner is the intersection of Mass Ave and Main Street in Acton, and it's one of our key corridors. There's several businesses. It's close to the school campus, and so the road's going to be widened. Bicycle lane is going to be added. The road that's pictured here that a lot of people take as a cut through, kind of to the left of Starbucks, that people cut through to go to CVS, which is a high traffic and high accident site. They're going to put a light there. And it's currently, it's actually not officially a road. It's kind of considered part of the parking lot, but everyone drives there. And so it's going to become officially a road. So that's good. And then, better crosswalk placement. Currently, a lot of the utility poles are right in the middle of the sidewalks. They're going to move those. And then, at the same time, thinking of, earlier Steve and I were talking about cost-saving measures that businesses can take. The town is no different, looking for cost-saving measures. So while the road is ripped up, they're going to replace the water pipes, which is something that needed to be done. So that way it doesn't need to be ripped up twice. But overall, it's going to be, 5 new crosswalks, also rapid flashing beacons, widening the islands for pedestrians to wait at when they're waiting. I mentioned the bike lanes. I mentioned the new signal, and then just also adding some more trees and everything to make it feel a little more like a nice walkable area.
Will you have to take land from businesses, because it seems like you could need to widen?
That's a great question. So they did, and so some of the strips of land were, a couple feet on either side, and I can't remember the number, but it was a sizable number of businesses and properties that they had to do that. And so I think that there are times in the state where when they came in for a project, they had to kind of like force their way in and take it by eminent domain. But the state, in conjunction with our planning director, has worked really hard at reaching out to all of those property owners. None of them have been taken by eminent domain. They've all made agreements. The property owners are being compensated for it. And so that even that piece was a huge amount of work to get all of the property owners to agree.
Because there are so many that are so close.
Right.
Right.
Exactly. So, yeah, so.
Thank you for that.
Yeah, no, definitely. So, since there's so much going on, I thought it might be good if I shared 3 ways that people could help if they were interested. So first and foremost, not just in Kelly's Corner, all over Acton, I'm trying to just meet and interact with and build relationships with business owners. So in general, I am cold calling, whether it's an email or a phone call. And I've gotten lots of great responses, but it's always easier if there's a warm introduction from somebody. So if you are or you know a business owner and you're willing to do kind of a warm connection of any business owner in Acton, that would be great. So that's one way. The second way that people could help if they are interested is that I really want to hear about your favorite businesses in town. And I also want to hear about what are the products or services that you wish were in town that you're having to go elsewhere. And not that you have to say it off the top of your head. You can always email me or call me at any time. But I'm really curious to hear about that. And then the final way is specifically back to Kelly's Corner. I'm trying to encourage the merchants there to band together and do some kind of Kelly's Corner is open during construction type of a marketing campaign. So if anyone's interested in that or has participated in buy local campaigns, I'd love to hear from you and chat. So that is economic development in a nutshell, and I really appreciate you guys.
Thank you.
Well done.
Any questions?
You mentioned that you do the manufacturing summit kind of thing. Do you do any other category of businesses?
So
similar?
far, we just started with the manufacturing, but I am interested in doing other categories. For this one, I'm doing it in conjunction with Mass Hire, and so some of it is choosing the industries where there's enough interest, right? Because you don't want it to become, you can't force people to come, right? Enough interest, but also industries where it's projected to both grow and pay a living wage, right? Living wage or better. And so the manufacturing industry, even though sometimes it has a stigma of being, just dirty, grueling work on a factory floor, and not that there isn't any assembly work, but manufacturing is huge. It includes biotech. It includes everyone from the assemblers up to the designing engineers. And also, manufacturing companies also have HR and finance. And so there's this whole world that sometimes people forget and kind of count them out. Yeah.
In terms of economic development, my understanding is that you want to shoot for, not you, but anybody wants to shoot for economic development that's healthy and sustainable.
Correct.
And sustainable means for several years, not just for 6 months or a year at a time. The type of economic development that you're embracing, that the town is embracing, is it healthy and sustainable for all people in the town, individuals, elderly, retired people, or just for the businesses?
That's another great question. I think that within the town hall, we definitely look at it for what's healthy and sustainable for everyone. For example, in that quality of life kind of category, one of the things I think about, I reach out to businesses, but also to nonprofits. Like there's a relatively newly located in Acton, they're called Ceci, but they're like an adult daycare. I get the impression that not as many people have heard of them, even though they're doing this great work. And so that's an example of an organization that supports people being able to age in place. And I think that's an important part of having this continual community.
I missed Just a couple of syllables. What was it that you mentioned as sort of an adult daycare?
It's an organization called CESI, CESI, and I apologize, I don't
Cooperative
remember.
Elder Care Services,
Oh, all
that's
right.
the one
Yes.
we're doing our fundraiser for.
Right.
Well,
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah.
doing the
Elder care,
fundraisers
nice.
for-
Oh,
I used to work there.
Oh,
Yeah.
perfect.
I worked there forever. I
Right.
was their nurse.
Perfect. So they moved to Acton from Concord,
Okay.
right? And
right,
so
Okay.
I think they're doing great work, and that's an example of, from my perspective, I'm really trying to connect with both businesses and these nonprofit organizations, because part of things being sustainable is having the services that residents need. So just as they're providing a valuable service to those participants in their program, but also if you think about it, they're providing an avenue for their family members to be able to work. Because say if you had like a memory care patient who you would be too nervous to leave home all day while you commuted to Boston, right? So your choices are sometimes, especially with the cost of care, maybe you leave work because you can't sustain both. And so having organizations like that mean that there's a caregiver who can work. So that also, it supports the community in two ways.
Any other questions or comments?
Well, this was before your time, but we all miss having Kmart, a department store in town, especially you mentioned the elder, that's very difficult for them to get elsewhere, where before they used to be able to go there and get things, and heaven knows I used it all the time, and now we have to go to Leominster or Hudson or it's an online shopping, but
I know, I get that question a lot. Currently,
yes.
the official answer is Stop and Shop, because Stop and Shop owns that plaza.
Yeah, I
They
know
took
there's
it
a
off
lot
the
of-
market.
Yeah, I know there was rent involved and all
Right.
that stuff, but are they thinking of bringing something back in?
Supposedly they have ideas, but it's a private company, so they're not required to tell us anything. But yeah, everyone looks at it and says,
We miss it. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
All right, thank you.
yeah.
Yeah. No, I just was ready to.
Okay, unless you have any other questions or comments, a big hearty round of applause for Julie for an excellent presentation.
Thank you.